This is the Precious Metals Briefing with Jerry Williams. Safeguard your money.
Welcome to another edition of the Precious Metals Briefing. I'm Tony Famino here again with Jerry Williams, the founder and vice president of American Precious Metals in Arizona. Silver prices continue to surge, and today you will discover how silver distinguishes itself in the precious metals field and how it can safeguard your wealth. And Jerry, today we've got Michael DiRienzo. He is the executive director of the Silver Institute. And we're going to talk about an issue that a lot of people are paying attention to, and that is silver.
Well, Michael, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to spend with us.
Well, listen, first of all, thank you both. And Jerry, it's an honor to be on the Precious Metals Briefing podcast. A little bit about the Silver Institute before we begin. You know, we're going into our 50th year next year. The Institute was founded 50 years ago in 2021, 1971 to be exact, and it was originally set up as more of a technical data house where papers would be presented on various aspects of silver, whether it be in photography, whether it be in use in solders and bearings and so forth, or electricity. It became a very well-read source of information on the mechanical principles and properties of silver. And then over time, it changed into more of a market-driven dynamic. So in other words, we're promoting silver. We're talking about all the aspects of silver, and we do that in a wide range of avenues. For example, we do our World Silver Survey every year. It's considered by many to be the Bible of the industry. We do a bi-monthly silver news, which is translated into Spanish and Chinese. And we do all types of special reports on silver. This year we've done one on the 5G revolution and how silver is going to play a vital role there. We've done one on solar power. We're putting one out shortly on silver and health, which is a very timely topic, obviously. And later in the year, we're going to do another market trend report on silver and the automotive arena, which is fastly becoming a huge demand center for silver.
Well, you covered a lot of area there, some of which is of curiosity to our clients. They call and want to know, well, who uses most of this silver? What's the biggest consumer?
In terms of a country or in terms of what use is the number one use?
Well, actually, I was thinking in terms of which industry uses the most. We used to be photography, I guess, but that's all changed.
It used to be photography, yeah. If you look at our World Silver Survey, it's interesting. When you look at photography, in 2011, it was about 61 million ounces. And in 2019, it was about 33 million ounces. But if you go 10 years previous, I should say, it was anywhere north of 200 million ounces a year. It was clearly the number one use. But in terms of silver's demand, it's 56, 55, 54% on any given year goes to industrial uses. Okay. And of those industrial uses, photovoltaics is the lead consumption of silver. So as solar panels are installed across the world, not only in areas where business takes place, but also in residential areas and so forth, you're going to see this grow throughout the years as well. Also, jewelry is a big demand center. Silverware, not so much, but still very, very important. And then, of course, the other main component is investment demand.
So at the investment demand part, would you be able to nail down, say, what percentage would go into modern day coinage? Every country seems like, including the U.S., is a big producer and consumer of American Eagles, for example. What percentage would that be as far as investment, just for coins?
Well, look at the American Eagle, which came about in the mid-1980s in a direct response to the apartheid situation in South Africa. The Reagan administration banned the Krugerrand for sale in the United States, and they developed the American Eagle coin program. And the American Eagle coin program is the most successful bullion coin program throughout the world. It is by far the leading form of coinage in terms of physical investment. You look at other mints as well. You can look at the Royal Canadian Mint, the Royal British Mint, Australia, Germany, and other countries also lead to overall coin demand at the end of the year. So, the coins have been extremely successful. At several times this year, they've been on allocation in the United States, meaning that the authorized purchasers of these coins could not get their hands on these coins because demand was so strong. So we've spoken to the U.S. Mint on several occasions this year and in previous years about ramping up their manufacturing of the blank, which is known as a planchette. And the more of those are around, the more that the U.S. mints can produce these coins. And they're sold to these 13 authorized purchasers who then sell them to their retail customers.
Well, I noticed on the chart that you referred to going back, say, 5 years, your supply-demand chart, the supply of mining output has declined every year for the past 5 years, a significant amount, too.
That's true.
Are there mines being closed? Are there any operating mines still in the U.S.?
Well, it's interesting. When you look at silver as a mined source, only about 29 to 31%, again, in any given year, comes from what's known as a primary silver mine. So silver truly is a byproduct metal from a mining perspective, from gold, lead, zinc, copper, and other mining activities. So, at 30%, what you're looking at here, the numbers have gone down over the years, and we forecast that they're going to go down even stronger this year. 7 to 10% decrease in mine supply of silver coming to the market, primarily and almost wholly based on the mine shutdowns in various strong producing countries, Mexico, Peru, for example. So, we think that number is going to go down further. It would represent, I believe, the 5th year of consecutive decrease in mine supply.
I noticed also that copper now is up to around $3.25 a pound, which would indicate that there'll be more and more copper mining, and so then that would be an increase then of silver output from that.
Oh, it absolutely could be. Absolutely. I think the mining industry on the whole is facing several challenges in 2020, and like many industries are. I know that in Peru, for example, when it comes to silver, some companies are only at 35% capacity this late in the game in terms of their output. So it's going to be a challenge. But I do believe that as time goes by, we're seeing less and less mining disruptions across the world. The miners have they've gone to great lengths to protect the workers and to ensure that everybody is tested, just like other industries have been doing as well. But when you look at an underground mine, for example, versus an open pit mine, you're going to see different challenges for both those types of operations.
Is there any way, Michael, you can determine what the average cost of silver is to produce?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have that in my World Silver Survey. I would just need to look up the cash cost. Just bear with me 1 second. But we do have that, and you can find all this information for free on our website at www.silverinstitute.org. The cash cost for silver, I'm just looking at our charts here, have been relatively stable over the years, and I think that we can determine it. And we have that information. I just don't have it at my fingertips at this moment.
Well, that's okay. I didn't notice it on your website, which is why I asked. It brings up a memory I have being in this business a long time. In 1999, there was a mysterious transfer of hundreds of millions of ounces of silver from London to New York. And no one knew why or who was taking this silver off the market as the price ran from $4 to close to $7. I don't know if you remember that or not, but it was later determined that Warren Buffett was the person buying and transferring all that silver. and was asked why he did that. He said it was ridiculously below, the price was below the cost of production. And I didn't know how he could figure that out, but he obviously did. He made a fortune, and so did a lot of other people on that move.
Well, that's a great story that I can actually elaborate on. So, to begin with, though, let's look at primary silver production cost. This is from primary mines. This is all in sustaining. In 2019, it was $11.47 per ounce of silver. Now, all in sustaining cash cost refers to everything. It refers to labor. It refers to energy. It refers to refining. It's every cost associated with producing an ounce of silver. So it was $11.40 in 2019. So obviously 2020 is a lot more rosy for the miners when you're looking at an average price and a current price of $24 or so. There's just much more headroom there at the end of the day. But on the Warren Buffett story, you're right. I think he bought nearly 160 million ounces of silver for the very reason you laid out. He got out of that position some years later, and he actually personally told me at an event that I should have waited a little bit longer because, when you look at the price in 2011 or 2012 or 2013 when it went up to $49 and change, he would have made a much larger profit. But it was funny. He actually also said, I sold too soon, and they call me the Wizard of Omaha. Anyway, nonetheless, I know he's bought into Barrick Gold this year, so he's still dabbling in the precious metals arena.
Right, he's very shrewd. Speaking of hoarding and things like that, do you have any opinion on this position that J.P. Morgan has? It's rumored to be 675 million ounces they have stored.
Well, I don't have an opinion on that, and quite frankly, I do know that J.P. Morgan serves as the custodian to several exchange-traded products across the world. So they store this silver for entities like BlackRock's SLV, like other ETP issuers across the world. But I don't have any inside information on exactly how much. I've read, obviously, the number, but I do know they serve as the custodian. So in other words, if BlackRock is going to issue an ounce of silver under their SLV, which was actually started by Barclays back in 2006, which we helped them with their prospectus, there has to be a corresponding ounce of silver in a vault in order to make that transaction. And if you read our latest press release that we put out just on the 15th of this month, talking about third quarter activity, silver from January through the end of the third quarter, you'll see that the inflows into silver ETPs nearly tripled when you compare it to 2019. So the interest is very, very strong. People are buying precious metals. People are really looking at silver, and they're looking at it in all forms with respect to bars, coins, and ETPs, exchange-traded products.
Well, I can certainly testify to that. I've been in this business for over 40 years, and these last 2 years, there's more interest in silver, frankly, and maybe it's the unit cost or maybe it's just the fundamentals, but a lot more interest in silver, actually, than in gold. More than half our business is in silver, so that's why I'm excited to be able to get this information from you. The reason I brought up J.P. Morgan is they just paid this huge fine and pleading guilty to spoofing to sort of manipulate the market. I'm sure you're aware of that, but
I am indeed. I am aware of that. Now, this is not just germane to the precious metals industry. They also paid fines for, I believe it was treasuries or some other asset that they were selling. Look, we have maintained since going back to 2008 that these markets need to be transparent. These markets need to be function. They need to function on a level playing field. We have spoken to the CFTC about how these markets operate, and they wrote in 2008 and again in 2012 that we have no evidence of market manipulation, but boom, 2016, they find evidence, 2017, I can't remember the year, that the markets are being manipulated, that there is spoofing taking place. and I think they acted accordingly, and they did what they needed to do, and what is proper. So we're all for the crackdown on any suspicious or illegal activity in these markets. I mean, these markets are so thin to begin with, right?
Right.
And bad actors can really manipulate the price in any commodity, especially a commodity like silver or gold. And we stand by what the CFTC and the SEC ultimately did here. And, if anything like that were to come to my attention, and it wouldn't because I'm not a market regulator, we would be happy to work with those regulators in putting those bad actors away.
Well, that would certainly be one influencer to the market volatility. What would be other influences like the inflation rate or the weakness in the U.S. dollar? Do you have any opinions on that?
I think
with the volatility.
I think what we're seeing today, I mean, there are several reasons why, the macroeconomic backdrop, what we're seeing across the globe, especially in 2020, we think it will underpin silver investment demand for the rest of this year. We had dramatic monetary easing policies and fiscal stimulus measures in many key markets. And again, we may see another stimulus measure after the election in the United States. That could boost inflationary expectations, right? And that will eventually weigh on the U.S. dollar. And that would continue to raise the appeal of safe haven assets, including silver and other precious metals.
Well, in relation to other precious metals, we've been following this gold to silver ratio for 50 years, and we've noticed that since 1980, there's only been 4 occasions of various duration where that silver ratio is 80 to 1 or better, and it always reverts back to something more reasonable like 30 to 50. Do you have any opinion on what would be a reasonable ratio or why it gets so out of whack from time to time?
I really don't. I'm sorry, Jerry. I don't have an opinion on the ratio. We know that it was upward of well over 100 earlier this year, especially in March when we sort of hit the market low when silver was trading, hit an intraday low. I think it was $11.37, and the gold ratio was well over 100. It's since come down. I don't know what it is actually at this very, very moment, but the silver
it's
and
80.
gold price
It's 80 right now.
80. Okay, well, it's come down quite a bit, and we think that the ratio can get near 70 to 1 level towards the end of this year, and certainly after the election.
Well, Michael, we're all concerned about the outcome of the election coming up, and there's concern about what happens if the socialists, the Democrats, win and start pursuing a green energy policy. It might be not necessarily good for the country, but might actually be pretty good for the silver market. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, without getting too political here, just looking at the underlying issue, a massive stimulus program that the Biden campaign has said they would like to put forward, which would include a severe ramp up in technologies such as solar power, for example. And that would be very, very good for silver. Silver is the best conductor of electricity and the best storage unit of power when it comes to solar power. Other metals have been tried, copper and others, and while they may work, they don't have the longevity of a silver-backed solar panel. So it would be a bonanza for silver, we believe. With respect to other avenues, I would assume that his plan would include the electrification of vehicles and so forth. And each EV, each automobile contains a lot of silver. And it would be not just the EV car itself or the hybrid car itself, it would also be the EV charging stations, which would require significant more amounts of silver to make them operable. Silver used to be only contained in some of the contacts in cars. And of course, we all know that silver is aligned in the strip on your rear window defroster because it's a metal conductor and that helps melt the fog or the ice off your rear view mirror. But as consumers start to demand and have started to demand more and more safety features in these cars, which are only available to the high-end vehicles initially, you see more and more silver being used in automobiles. And if there's an EV component in this plan, it's going to be another win-win for silver. And with respect to 5G technology, it's here in many parts of the world. And while silver right now is just a small component of it, as it expands, as more installations become available, as more cell phones come online that are 5G capable, you're going to see more and more silver in these handheld units. Everything that pretty much has a light switch or an on and off switch contains silver. So that's everything from your computer to your phone to your printers to your light switches to just basically everything. I mean, silver really is the indispensable metal that makes the world go round. So as industry starts to pick up across the globe, we're going to see more and more silver down the road being used in all forms of industry, but especially in green energy technologies.
Well, that's fascinating. It used to be a good source of silver was recovered from, say, X-rays and technology and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Is there a recovery process other than just scrap from jewelry and things like that in any of these industries at all?
There is, Jerry, but it's really difficult. The amount of silver you find in an iPhone or a Samsung phone is small to begin with. There's a big issue about e-waste, for example, a big global environmental issue about e-waste. And it's not so much the silver, but if there's gold, that's much more recoverable from a cost perspective than, say, silver. But the silver we see from scrap, you're right. It does come from spent medical cartridges, X-ray cartridges, and it also comes with a higher silver price. People tend to turn in their gold pieces, their watches, their jewelry. When gold gets near 2,000 an ounce, you see a big ramp up in people returning their gold items, and to a certain extent, silver as well. So as the price gets higher, you see more scrap coming to the market in the form of jewelry, in the form of trinkets, silverware, and so forth. But right now, it hasn't impacted the silver side as much as it has the gold side in 2020.
It just seems, looking at this chart, like there's not much of a surplus between supply and demand, and the investment demand continues to go up. That leaves less for industry, doesn't it?
Well, it does. And, on the silver side, you see a lot of the demand is set forth and it is relied upon by supply of silver from above ground stocks. So, yeah. And there's more above ground supply of silver than there is for some of the other metals. So that demand is eventually met, okay? But the question is in the market, and there's very analysts who argue back and forth, what was the size of the surplus or what was the size of the deficit? And we had a small surplus last year, but it's infinitesimal when you're looking at a 1 billion ounce market, right? If you're looking at a 130, I can't remember the exact percentage of the surplus last year, but it really doesn't even matter. It's a question of when the deficits start to kick in, and I can't forecast, nor do I know what we will have this year. I've seen that there may be a small deficit. I've also seen other analysts saying that there may be a small surplus. We won't know till the end of the year.
Are there any silver mines that just do silver, like Sunshine up in Idaho used to be, or up in Ketchum, I think it was? Do you keep track of how many pure silver mines there are operating in the country, if any?
Well, we and other analysts, they use a formula in order to call a mine, a primary silver mine is a mine that produces 51% silver, okay, or 51% gold, primary gold mine, or a copper mine, for example. Anything above 51%. Yeah, there are mines across the globe that are silver-based mines, and 30% of the world's production comes from those mines.
Well, Michael, thank you. I hope to meet you in person at one of these conventions one of these days. I have seen your video, which is you come across very knowledgeable, very impressive, and thank you for spending time with us. I just wrap up my podcast every week by repeating the famous words from the Wizard of Id. Kind of relates to silver, I guess, too, but he who has the gold makes the rules.
You've been listening to the Precious Metals Briefing with Jerry Williams. To learn more about safeguarding your money, go to apmaz.com or call 800-522-GOLD.